everyone. My name is Danielle Jablanski, and I'm an OT cybersecurity strategist with Nozomi Networks. Nozomi Networks is a software solutions provider that operates across critical infrastructure to fortify and optimize operations. What that means is we work on cybersecurity, but we also, map and test processes within industrial control systems or manufacturing locations to make sure that anomalies aren't detected in the way in which technology operates or communications flow. I'm really excited to join you today with the Tortora Breda Institute as an Athena Podium speaker. And I'm joining you pre-recorded from my home in Dallas, Fort Worth, where I work remotely each day to spread the good news about critical infrastructure and the fact that there are really good opportunities out there to incorporate cybersecurity into those operations. So for me, cybersecurity is a vast ecosystem of understanding, building, manipulating, and securing technology, data, information, and communications, which is a lot to unpack. And it also means that there are many pathways in and many specialties within cybersecurity. And then on top of that, there's a seemingly never-ending opportunity for more learning, more growth, and more nuance. And so I got into cybersecurity actually through studying nuclear weapons policy and the ways in which cyber could impact potentially command and control networks for how we operate and launch nuclear weapons, but also how the information ecosystem could be manipulated in crisis, and also some of the underpinnings in academia for understanding some of the theory behind war and conflict and how we might start to think about game theory as it applies to cybersecurity, or mutually assured destruction and its analogies within cybersecurity. And I quickly learned that there really weren't very good analogies and there really weren't very good theories that exist, because cybersecurity is new and it's evolving every day, sometimes every single day. And so a lot of the times you'll hear people say, the best offense is a good defense. And in cybersecurity, the best defense is really learning as much as you can about the offense and being able to reverse engineer offensive tactics to build a good defense, which often puts us on the reactionary side of cybersecurity operations in cyberspace, but it doesn't have to. And so we're really pushing out to this preventative resilience building type of mindset in cybersecurity. And so we're seeing that kind of shift every day, where legislation and different initiatives and things like that continue to try to be proactive, right? And try to really have an impact on the world instead of continuing to react to situations and crises as we see them unfold. And so what I'm here to talk to you about today is really about my career path, but about what I think is important in this sector. And first of all, I think that in terms of building leadership and capacity in this sector, it really requires agency. So you can learn a lot of things quickly or over time and build a knowledge base that you think is useful for maybe your job description or your organization. But if you don't have agency to execute or authority to speak on those issues, then that training and knowledge can only go so far. And so if you are in a situation where your leadership doesn't give you a lot of room to have agency over your words, your actions, your knowledge, your choices, the teams you're building, the projects you're executing on, the vision, the strategy, the goals, sometimes the audacious goals of your organization or of your position or of your team, then I think you're limited and hindered in that sense. So that really brings me to what I think is extremely important in terms of being a woman in this space, which is diversity. And I don't just think that diversity in cybersecurity means gender parity, but true diversity of thought, gender, experience, age, background, location, socioeconomic status, certifications versus four-year degrees versus everything else. I think everything should be encapsulated, and simply that 15 to 25% of us being women is obviously not enough, but we shouldn't be brought to the table because we're women, but because we have really valid experiences, knowledge, goals, training, education, and agency to offer this field. And so with that experience, there are a lot of assumptions out there that, being a woman in this field means you have X, Y, and Z experience. And I would really caution people against making those sorts of assumptions. So, something in my background that a lot of people don't know about is that I was a youth care specialist for a foster agency in the state of Missouri as my first job between undergrad and my graduate degree. And so learning compassion for social work and being out in reality has actually led me to today in conversations that seem to be extremely high level at the C-suite with CISOs and CEOs and government representatives, et cetera. I'm really able to draw them back from this larger than life discussion and to be able to articulate real world problems on the ground level that we can start to work back from to help us kind of divulge what the real problem set is and how to address pain points for real people, rather than how to have really important conversations at really high levels for the rest of our lives. And women bring, hardships and, career shifts. Some are first generation. I was a first generation college graduate in my family. Some are first generation immigrants. They bring all sorts of experiences. We bring all sorts of experiences, every single woman, to workplaces that have historically been lacking in that diversity of thought and experience. And I think it really should go across the board. It's not just about women, but true diversity of background, age, race, location, like I said, sex, gender, everything. And something that I wish I would have known sooner in this field is that you don't actually have to be technical to have an impact. You can be focused on any number of specialties within cybersecurity, which isn't what we're here to discuss today, but you don't have to be technical to make an impact. So while I love capture the flags and learning hacking tools and, hunting through Burp Suite to find information and using Wireshark and understanding and investing in some of those tools that are out there, I learned that in my career, I was more drawn to describing the problems to audiences that had maybe never wrapped their heads around them, so that they could begin to make kind of incremental decisions to secure what they thought was most important, not what I thought was most important. And that's a very specific hat to wear in cybersecurity. And so that also led me to a discussion when I was deciding to not continue to pursue academia, but to jump into the private sector. And that was a question about individually what really motivated me. And I kept coming back to this word impact. So, a lot of people are motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by money, and that's okay. Some people are motivated by being in the room with powerful people, and that's also okay. And I was really motivated about short-term goals that I could see realistically achieve and then kind of check off a list. And being a part of a team that was really, really fast moving. So now I work for a startup, and we do cybersecurity for critical infrastructure. And I feel that in short sprints, we have a ton of impact across so many sectors that I know that the world relies on each and every day. And that means we're having an outsized impact on the world that in the ways that I care about. But what's funny to me is that, people can make entire careers out of just being busy and having kind of existential conversations each and every day and understanding those problems really well. And maybe even, writing books about those problems without really affecting any change. And for me, that motivating factor was less about prestige and more about what can I actually cross off the list? What can I see that, right now seems like an audacious goal, but in a couple of years, it might be something I get to check off. And solving world hunger is something that would be on the list, but not something I'm able to check off. And so I was able to walk away from some of the idealism of the big problems in the world that we could solve and start saying, well, can I help a sector that I know to be really behind in terms of either investments in cybersecurity or understanding of the problem set, and can I help them incrementally do better from this year to the next year, rather than have kind of a 10, 20-year goal. And so that's something I find really important, is to sit with yourself and understand what is your motivating factor, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And maybe that is the technical hunt. Maybe you really love QA and code analysis. Maybe you really love all of the tools. Maybe you're destined to teach other people once you learn it, right? So a lot of people get into cybersecurity, understand the tools really, really well and the techniques, and then turn around and teach more people, because we know that there's this big gap in terms of the talent and the pipeline across the board. So another thing that I really wanted to highlight for this Athena's Podium was that once you get into a career in cybersecurity, whatever you're looking to do, I would caution you to not be so thankful that you're afraid to question the status quo. Cybersecurity as an industry is very young. It's not something that we've been doing for decades and decades and decades. It's something that continues to evolve, which I think we all know, which makes it kind of difficult to wrap our heads around. But at the same time, there are a lot of assumptions that get made based on other people's multidisciplinary approach to cybersecurity, which is a good thing to have. But a lot of those assumptions don't get checked. And then that kind of also seeps into the way in which we progress in our careers. And so I was early in my career, I was in a job and I asked a teammate, how do I approach this potential promotion that I think, is on my roadmap of something I want to achieve someday. And I asked for advice, how would I get to that step? And this coworker's response was that I was too young to have that promotion. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm too young to be promoted, then I have to go elsewhere where that mobility to climb a ladder is actually more ready for me. So that's what I did. I went and I found another job. And once I told my boss that I had this other offer, lo and behold, they offered me, to stay with the promotion that I was told I was too young to actually be offered. And so that's something I took at face value. I didn't know to question the status quo. I didn't know to seek another opinion. I was told something that I believed to be true about the industry that I worked in. And I looked elsewhere and that's been a fruitful path for me. But, I would caution again, don't be so thankful that you get in and you get your foot in the door that you're afraid to question the status quo, because there's a lot of status quo to be questioned. Another thing I would say about my career in this space is that I keep my intentionality centered on seeking purpose and not power. There's always going to be, louder personalities in the room, but at the end of the day, I want to effectuate change. And so I'm the person in the meeting that's saying, here's a readout of the key takeaways. Here's who's on first, who's on second. Here's what needs to be done next. Here's a way for us to zoom back on something that we're not really finding common ground on, and then maybe have a strategic approach to a conversation that can get us there. There's a lot of people that continue to shake up this industry in a really good and positive way. And I'm also learning from those mentors across the board about how to be positive, how to protect your personal brand, how to continue to grow without looking like you don't have a good solid focus, or you can't really draw a line back in terms of your experiences and how they build. But if you're continuing to seek purpose over power, and understanding the motivations that get you out of bed each and every morning, then I would suggest to you and submit to you that you'll never go astray. So you'll be able to kind of trust your gut and make really good decisions based on, questioning the status quo, understanding your motivations, and seeking that purpose in all that you do. So I really want to go back to, before I end, this focus on diversity. And I think what's interesting is we see a lot of people take this initiative under their wing, but sometimes it becomes, and by people, I mean organizations and companies as well, and institutions, where they set it out as a goal to incorporate more diversity or open up, pipelines for submissions and applications to things more broadly. But a lot of the times it really becomes lip service. For example, there are a lot of major corporations and companies that don't include cybersecurity training because it's in the form of a certificate or a boot camp type program. They won't include that in tuition reimbursements, right? That seems to me like something really easy that we could affect change on across the board, across many sectors and institutions in our country, to say, we should open this up. This should be a reimbursement platform for something that we know is a major gap across the board in terms of, butts and seats and positions to fill. And then we have this kind of outstanding deficit in terms of being able to actually incorporate those programs into tuition reimbursement and continuing education programs that already exist. And so I would also caution against recreating the wheel. We need to have more of a wholesale understanding of what already exists and how we can, make those processes more robust, review where there's already funding for things that's just not being actualized. It's the planning has gone awry. And to start to think outside the box in terms of how we broaden the aperture for the talent pipeline across, different categories. I still see entire gatherings that are all one gender, one race. And that might be because it's always been that way, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a potential juncture in which you could have changed that outcome, right? Questioning the status quo. It takes one person to question, well, why have things always been that way? Is that the way that things always need to be? If not, what does that gray space look like? And how can we affect change and bring in more people and more diversity of thought and diversity of experience? And obviously diversity of gender and race as well. So with that said, I want to encourage anyone who has been either on the fence about their own career path, their technical merit, their background being from a non, normal kind of computer science degree type background, somebody who is just really interested in coding and doesn't know where to get started, somebody who might be working in finance or education or any other industry or sector that thinks that cybersecurity has always been really interesting to them. They've watched some YouTube videos and they don't know how to get started. Please look into those programs that are cost effective and get your foot in the door. Buy the book that you think you've been wanting to read and set aside that time to understand that there is a place for you at these tables. There is a place for you at these organizations, and there is a place for you in this really broad, right, spectrum of critical thinking and skill sets and applied knowledge, that there's a place for you here, and we want you there. So again, I really am delighted to be on Athena's podium speaking to you from my home in Dallas, Fort Worth. If you're ever here, please look me up. And I hope to see you with Nozomi Networks in the next couple of years, or also with the Atlantic Council or Building Cybersecurity, or any of the other organizations that I continue to contribute time to, because I think that their missions are the most worthwhile. Again, thank you to the Tortora Breda Institute for all that they do. And I'm excited to see how we change this percentage gap in women in cybersecurity. Thank you.